Ladies and gentlemen, when I was playing intermediate senior ball in New Brunswick in the mid-1980s, we'd always joke if a game went past the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, which a lot of the games back then in our league was either 7 or 9 innings, we always say, well, we'll never reach the level of what happened in Pawtucket. Now, today, a big request from a great friend of our channel, Andrew Lippert. Andrew always comes up with great suggestions. I want to say I'm sorry to Andrew. I was thinking about this a few months back, so if I unintentionally racked his brain saying, why isn't Jeffrey doing something on this? Andrew, you have my apology, but Andrew's a genius when it comes to requests, so thank you, Andrew, again. We finally got to it. For baseball fans, this stands out again as the longest pro baseball game ever. And let me tell you something, just like long overtime NHL playoff games, the details are memorable, the moments that surround it are memorable, the memories literally will last forever. So today, the longest professional baseball game in history, for the 5 people out there that don't know about this, was held between the Rochester Red Wings and the Pawtucket Red Sox on April 18th, 19th, and 23rd of 1981. The final score was 3-2 for the home side. Now, many superstars, many former stars, many future stars of MLB played in the game. And it's often called the Boggs Ripken game because Rochester, which was a Baltimore affiliate, had Cal Ripken, and Boston at the time, the great Wade Boggs, was still mired in the minors, despite several consecutive seasons of 300-plus batting averages. Now, held at the venerable Little Fenway in McCoy Stadium, I've been there several times before they moved, their international affiliate for Boston, and there's a big display. When you used to walk in McCoy, there was a big display you could look at. Literally, the breakdown of all the innings of the game are there. And that's a big part of the legacy of Pawtucket. It's talked about in articles. There's been essays, books, all kind of different stuff. Now, at the time, the managers were Doc Edwards for Rochester and Joe Morgan, not the Houston Astros Joe Morgan, but the other Joe Morgan, who ended up being a Red Sox manager down the road. Now, ironically, Dennis Craig was the umpire, and his appearance at the game as an umpire almost led to a criminal investigation. We're going to get into something about that. Very unique situation. Also, as well, almost a breakup. I'm not joking. That's another story of the show. 1,740 people at the time. Only 20 minus 1 possibly. We'll get to that in a second at the end of the game. But about 57-46 appeared for the extended inning on June 23rd because a lot of the media were there to cover it because Major League Baseball at the time was on strike. Now, the game was supposed to be finished at Fenway, of all places, but the players involved did not want to cross the picket lines. So, now, both Rochester and Pawtucket were well-known powers in the AAA International League at the time. Again, the 33 innings, 8 hours and 25 minutes. To put this in perspective, a normal game involving a Red Sox team could go, in even the current Red Sox, between 3 hours and 3 hours and 15 minutes. So he played literally 3 games. Over 8 hours, 25 minutes, with no resolution until the last few minutes. Now, it started at 8:25 on a very cold night on Saturday, April 18th. The game was delayed for about 30 minutes due to the problems with the stadium lights, I think because of the cold or some kind of bad connection. It continued throughout the night and into Easter morning. Although most leagues had a curfew rule that would have suspended the game, the ILs activates at 12:50 a.m. The copy of the rule book on that of home plate umpire Dennis Craig failed to mention this cutoff time. After Pawtucket's Russ Larrabee sacrifice fly drove in Chico Walker in the bottom of the ninth and tied the game at 1 run each, the teams continued playing. Several times, a team would come close to victory before circumstances changed. When Wade Boggs drove in a tying run in the bottom of the 21st after a Rochester run, even the Pawtucket players groaned. He recalled, "I didn't know if the guys in the team wanted to hug me or slug me. The weather was so cold that players burned broken bats and the stadium's wooden benches to warm themselves, and the clubhouses ran out of food. The wind eventually blew into the infield, making hits difficult. Pawtucket's Dave Causa later said that otherwise his team would have won in 9 innings with 4 or 5 shots that would have been out of the park. For example, Sam Bowen hit a fly ball to center that reportedly left the field before the wind blew it back to Rochester outfielder Dallas Williams. Now, Williams was unique in this game. He went 0 for 13 in 15 plate appearances and one of the many records achieved during the contest. Now, after Pawtucket's Louis Aponte pitched a 7 to 10th innings of relief, manager Morgan, who himself would be ejected in the 22nd inning by Craig, let him leave before the game ended. Now, Aponte's wife did not believe his explanation for coming home at 3 a.m. Sunday. What are you up to? Blah, blah, blah. He promised that the Sunday newspaper would prove his story, but since the game's postponement occurred too late to appear in it, Aponte had to wait until the Monday edition to be finally forgiven. Now, Craig had brought his nephew David to the game, and David's father eventually became concerned for his family, called the police, who told him that the game had not ended. Now, according to local reports at the time, it literally was a criminal investigation. He thought maybe there was an accident or whatever, and obviously there was no missing person that was done, but for a couple of hours it was like, what the hell is going on here? Because usually most baseball games are wrapping up or leaving between 11:30 and 12:30 at the time. By 4 a.m. the players were literally delirious from exhaustion. Rochester's Dave Hubert had caught the first 31 innings before being replaced, and Jim Umbarger pitched 10 scoreless innings from the 23rd on, striking out 9 and giving up 4 hits. The president of the league, Harold Cooper, was finally reached on the phone by Pawtucket GM Mike Tamburo sometime after 3 a.m. The horrified Cooper ordered that play stop at the end of the current inning. Finally, at 7 a.m., at the end of the 32nd, and more than 8 hours after he began, the game was stopped. There was 19 fans left in the seats, not including David Craig, who had fallen asleep. I don't know if he was asleep in the car or where it was, but all of whom that were left in the game received season or lifetime passes to McCoy. As the players went home to rest before returning at 11 a.m. for an afternoon game that Sunday, they saw people going to Easter sunrise service. When Boggs' fathers complimented him for getting 4 hits in a game, the player admitted that he actually had 12 at-bats, which is kind of ironic because the normal batting average for Wade Boggs in the season was .333. He was well known for being what they call a 3 out of 12 hitter. 4 out of 12 hitters, excuse me. Now, both teams signed a baseball on Sunday for display at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Cooper had suggested that the game resume that day, but Rochester manager Doc Edwards requested a delay because of the risk of injury. Instead, it resumed on the evening of June 23rd, the next time the Red Wings were in town. A sellout crowd of 57-46, and of course the 140 reporters from around the world, including Canada and Mexico, and I think a few from Japan, were there, partly because the major leagues were on strike at the time. The players voted against an offer to resume the game at Fenway Park to again avoid crossing the picket line. On that evening, it took just 1 inning and 18 minutes to finish the game, similar to the Pine Tire contest, with Causa driving in the winning run to the bottom of the 33rd. The losing pitcher was former Blue Jay Steve Graley, who had joined Rochester in the interim since the game's suspension. Now, the Pawtucket Red Sox celebrated the 25th anniversary of the game on June 23, 2006. Many members of both teams attended a luncheon and roundtable discussion in Providence, and a ceremony was held before the game against the Columbus Clippers that night. Dennis Craig says he thinks that David Craig has never attended another baseball game. Now, the pro record set in the game, again, most innings 33, total time 8:25, putouts per team in one game 99 by Pawtucket, most total putouts in a game 195, most at-bats for one team in one game 114 Pawtucket, total at-bats in one game 219, most strikeouts batting in one game 34 by Rochester, most total strikeouts in one game 60, most total assists in one game 88, most at-bats by one player in one game 14, Dave Causa, Lee Graham, Chico Walker, who were all in Pawtucket. Most plate appearances by one player in one game, 15, Tommy Eaton, Cal Ripken Jr., Dallas Williams, all Rochester. Most strikeouts by one player, Russ Larrabee of Pawtucket with 7. Now, longest plate appearance by a single umpire, again, Dennis Craig, 882 pitches over 8 hours and 25 minutes. Now, the line score is quite interesting. If you look at it, Rochester scored in the 7th, Pawtucket tied in the 9th, and then the joined scores later on in the contest. I think it was the 21st inning, and again the bottom of the big inning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the idea about baseball being played in this way, it leaves a lot of memories. The winning pitcher of this was, of course, the great Bob Ojeda, who was a big factor in Boston and New York during what he called the '86, championship eras for Boston and the Mets. Now, in this game, Eaton went 3 for 10. Williams went 0 for 13 for Rochester. Ripken was 2 for 13. Corey was 1 for 5. Chisholm was 0 for 1. Rayford was 0 for 5. Logan was 4 for 12. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to stop it for a second. I'm having some computer issues. The idea of a team like Rochester taking on Pawtucket, there was a big rivalry at the time, which has continued over the years and different factors, like with Baltimore and there we go here. I think we're okay. Let me check it. Let me check it here. The idea of a game like this with no end is kind of weird. Okay, let me go here. Logan was 4 for 12. Valet was 0 for 1. Bourgeois was 2 for 4. Hale was 1 for 7. Smith for 0 for 0. Hayeswood was 0 for 4. Hart was 1 for 6. Bonner was 3 for 12. Upera was 0 for 11, and Putnam was 0 for 1. So it's 105 at-bats for Rochester. Now for Pawtucket, Graham was 1 for 14. The Marty Barrett, the great star for Boston, future star for Boston, 2 for 12. Chico Walker, 2 for 14. Larrabee, 0 for 11. Koza, 5 for 14. Boggs, 4 for 12 with 1 RBI. Bowen was 2 for 12. Rich Gedman, the great future catcher for Boston, 1 for 3. Angarado was 0 for 1. LaFrancois was 2 for 8. Valdez was 2 for 13, so it was 114 at-bats and 21 hits. Pitchers, Jones pitched 8.2, Schneider 5.1, Luber 8 for Rochester, Umbarger 10, Greeley in the redone game, and then Speck no innings pitch. For Pawtucket, Parks, Aponte, Sarmiento 6.44, Smithson 3.2, Remerswald 4.1, Finch, the real Finch, 5 innings, Hurst 5 innings, Ojeda who picked up the win, and Parks again pitched to 3 batters in the 7th inning. Now, again, Larrabee went over 11 for Pawtucket with a sacrifice fly, striking out 7 times, and became the first player in history to surpass the titanium sombrero 6 strikeout level. Based on a 9-inning game, unfortunately, he would only have struck out 3 times per 9 innings. Now, between the two squads, pitchers faced a total of 246 batters, and a total, again, of 882 pitches were thrown. Now, Koza had the most hits of any player in the game MVP, literally, including the game winner, and 5 hits. 53 runners were left on base, 30 by Rochester and 23 by Pawtucket. Now, the only player on either team who did not play in the game was future MLB manager Kevin Kennedy of Pawtucket. Now, again, 2 baseball Hall of Famers appeared in the game. Ripken was inducted in 2007, and also he made his Major League debut 2 minutes later after the game was completed, and he was Rookie of the Year in the '82 season. Boggs, who was inducted in 2005, played 3rd place for Pawtucket and added also a double in the contest, and he made the majors in April '82 and never looked back. Now, the Baseball Hall of Fame possesses other artifacts of the game, including the official scorecard. Now, a total of, get this, 27 future and former Major League players played in the game. Now, 7 Pawtucket players had already made their Major League debuts and were back in the minors at the time of the game but returned to the major leagues. This included, again, Chico Walker, who played for 13 years, Bob Ojeda, who played for 14 years, Bruce Hurst, who played for 15 years, Marty Samiento, who played from 76-83, Richie Gedman, very underrated catcher, 1980 to 1992, Aponte played from 80 to 84, while Julio Valdez played from 80 to 83. Now, 4 other Pawtucket players had yet to debut in the majors. Marty Barrett, besides Boggs, Marty Barrett, who played 11 years in the show, Mike Spitzen, who played from 82-89, and Robert LaFrancois, who played with the Red Sox in 82. Now, one Pawtucket player had completed his major league career by the time in his game. Wynn had pitched for Red Sox in 79 and 80, and 81 was his last year in American baseball before playing for 5 years in Italy. Now, 4 Rochester players had already made their major league debuts, but were back in the minors at the time. They included Floyd Rayford, a very underrated catcher and third baseman, who played 7 years with the Orioles and Cardinals, 80 to 87. Mark Corey played with the Orioles, 79-81. Bobby Bonner, who played as a middle infielder for 4 years in the early 80s for the Orioles. Steve Luber, who played 71, 72, and 76 for the Twins, and 79 for the Blue Jays before getting back with the Orioles in 81. And again, Ripken Dallas Williams, who also played for Cincinnati between 81 and 83. Dave Hubert, who played in the major leagues with the catcher and Orioles and the Brewers in 85, and Cliff Speck, who played for the Braves in 86. Now, 7 Rochester players had completed their major league careers by the time of the contest, including John Hale, Drungo Hazelwood. Hale played for 74 to 79. Hazelwood appeared with the Orioles in 1980, as did Mike Hart. Chris Bourgeois appeared in 13 games for the 1980 Giants, and Ed Putnam appeared as a catcher with the Cubs and Tigers between 76 and 79. Jim Umbarger appeared in 133 games as a pitcher for Rangers in Oakland between 75 and 78, pitching in the minors till 83. And of course, the legendary Steve Grilly, big with the Blue Jay fans. He had pitched in 69 games for the Tigers from 75 to 77, with 1 game for the Blue Jays in 79. And of course, he was the father of Blue Jay favorite Jason Grilly, who retired from baseball. The senior Grilly retired from baseball at the end of the 81 season. Now, Pawtucket has moved on for its international franchise, and I found some information on the old McCoy site, and some interesting tidbits that maybe you don't know about. Koza was quoted as saying, "Having the bases loaded was a dream for me," said Koza, who had scored one of the older Pawtucket runs on April 18 and 19th. "I think anyone would have liked to be in my shoes, like you're driving in the winning run." Now, Koza, he said, what happened? He entered the game as the best hitter of the contest at 4 for 13. He had a 2-2 curveball from reliever Cliff Speck into left field to score Marty Barrett and give, again, the Red Sox a 3-2 victory. And you see the photo of Marty passing. This came with the bases loaded and none out, as Pawtucket managed to end the contest at the first at-bat in the bottom of the 33rd inning. Now, the Pawtucket wasted no time against loser Steve Grilly, the 5th Rochester pitcher, who was worked with Syracuse when the two teams began this maritime game. Grilly hit Barrett with his first pitch, and Chico Walker followed with a hit-and-run single to center, moving Barrett to third. Grilly walked Russ Larrabee intentionally to fill the bases before giving way to Speck, who lasted 4 pitches. Again, it took just 18 minutes to finally end the contest. Now, the quotes of this have appeared in various publications over the years, and whether you accept them as what I call conjecture, but Steve Krasner did a book called The Longest Game, which was more of an expanded article, and according to Krasner's research, he was talking to different people, and Rich Gedman said, "When we walked off the field at 4 o'clock in the morning, it was like, you mean we're not done with the game yet?" Now, Joe Morgan said, I wanted 40 innings so nobody could ever tie our beautiful record. I don't think it will ever be tied because we'll have quotas. According to Bruce Hurst, always good for a line. I remember striking out Cal Ripken on a 3-2 breaking ball at 4 in the morning, and I don't think he ever forgave me, which I don't think he did. Now, Cal Ripken was always a good joker. Jim Umbarger was always mouthy on the bench. Really, pitcher was going on about what to do, and he said, Umbarger said, watch for the bunt, and he told Umbarger, he said, I've been watching the bunt for 23 innings now. Now, Pawtucket's Dave Koza after a historic game-winning hit, and I tend to believe it. Nothing I ever do in life will probably compare to this, and it never has. Now, a lot of people, according to Boggs, a lot of people were saying, yeah, we tied it, and then they said, oh no, what did you do? We could have gone home. Now, Dallas Williams, who I think is a great legend of the game for futility, but yet one of the better players in the contest, it sank in the next day. Man, we just played 32 innings of baseball. We joked about it. We had smiles on our faces. I was thankful I was a baseball player and on the field that night. As time went by, I appreciated it more. My only regret, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen a lot of extra inning games in person on the minor level, and watching at the pro level. I go back to the New York Mets Oakland game back in the day, 1973 game 2, where basically my mother decided she wanted me to go outside for some reason and play outside. I knew the game was going to go in extra innings, and this was the game of the famous play at the plate where the Met player wasn't out and was called out. My mother was on my back, and she said, why don't you go outside? I said, Mom, there's history going on here. And this is what I think the game where Willie Mays had his last professional hit for the Mets after coming over from the Giants. You see, when you get to an extra inning game, you have to wait to see what's going to happen, because they call that walk-off in baseball, but like what I call an overtime winner or golden goal in hockey. There's nothing better than extra innings or playoff hockey, like the overtime. See, in hockey is different. You have another chance at bat. In baseball, football is not as fair. The rules are changed this year as well. But hockey is more immediate. But the anticipation with a player at second, 2 men out, 2-2 count. It's what baseball is all about. The pitcher against the hitter. The ultimate battle of brain versus brawn, or brawn versus lack of brains. And in certain cases of bad decisions. But you look at Cabrera. You look at various extra inning heroes through the years. It's amazing what stands out. But when you talk Pawtucket for a lot of years, didn't even talk about the ball game, ball team half the time. You talked about the longest game of all time, so it put Pawtucket on the map. If you're a certain age, when you hear Pawtucket, you're saying, oh, that's where the longest baseball game was held. You don't even know it's not Major League Baseball. But when they went to McCoy Stadium, it's a unique feel, ladies and gentlemen, because there's unique fans who would go there. I met a fan from southern Massachusetts who was convinced, I think it was the 4th time I went there, that if she crossed the Canadian border into Holton or Presque Isle in Maine, that bears were going to come out of the woods and eat her. She literally said, when I crossed, she said, I'm scared that bears are going to eat me. Well, I said, are you driving with a car? Are you walking? I'm driving, so I don't think, guys, I told her, I don't think bears. And her husband was there. I said, what's the problem with your wife? Well, she said she hasn't been the same, get this, since she saw, her relatives were at the Pawtucket extra inning game, and she's kind of been different since then. I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, she was raised by some really strange people, and like I said, one of them was at the game. I said, well, that explains it. If you're at that game, you're heard of that game, it would kind of put you in a spiritual funk, because you expect anything to happen. Who would thought who went to that game who would go that long? I mean, because, Boston was loaded with prospects at the time, so was Baltimore. You would figure, Rayford or Ripken or Boggs or Marty or Rich Gedman would end it with, your typical 2 or 3 run homer. But, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew, the reason why Andrew mentioned it, because it's in the minds of a lot of baseball and sports fans, how sports, even in the 1980s, was literally old school. You look at the track pants that Hartford and Philadelphia wore back in the day. That's a discussion. You look at the way fighting occurred. There was no injuries with helmets, no helmets. Now we have injuries all the time. You have brawls back in the day, literally old school hockey dating into the 70s, and you knew every person that was fighting. Nowadays, you don't know any of the players are playing because they have too much equipment. And like I said, the feeling of certain sports is gone. You would recognize the weight or the sideburns of a player, even like somebody like Mike Hargrove, who took like 8 minutes at the plate before every at bat. Harbosky, the mad Hungarian. There was characters. The end of character baseball was starting with the early 1980s. And let me tell you something, I miss going to a ball game and not knowing when it was going to end. If I go to a game and say, well, it's going to end by, when the All-Star Sea called the All-Star game when it was tied, you would not see that before 1982. It changed the game for the good, and it changed the game for the bad. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is the day after another tremendous defeat for the Toronto Blue Jays and the Toronto Maple Leafs in the NHL playoffs, 7-3 for Tampa Bay. If you're recovering from that, listen to this podcast, you might feel better. If not, please give us a like, a comment, or subscribe, or even a share. We continue to jump in hits, over 560,000 for the channel. Again, we appreciate every one of you. And don't forget, if you're from Pawtucket, give me, or a fan of Pawtucket, give me your memory of the team or what Pawtucket meant to you. I really, really respect and appreciate the Pawtucket Red Sox fans because of all in southern Massachusetts and that region of Rhode Island. Pawtucket meant so much to so many people, again, before the shift. And it's funny, the lady would say she's scared of bears. She was at a Paw Sox game. And their symbol is a bear. So, go figure. Anyway, sometimes a beautiful woman is cracked, and just the way it goes. That's what is about life. Handsome men are cracked too. Sometimes looks do not equal brains, as we like to say. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, spring is coming wherever you are. It might be coming this week. Thanks for listening. Bye.